Robin, last time we spoke a bit about your dissertation. I'd love to talk a bit more about that. Can you explain again what the topic was and some of the things that you learned from that? It's really interesting.
So there's a there's a framework out there called the Human Factors Analysis Classification System, and it was created a couple of decades ago by Dr. Stewart and Dr. Chappell and Wiegman, and it was a program created for the U.S. Navy to investigate accidents. And basically, it's a blameless framework where you come in and you find root cause. And a lot of investigations will stop at root cause, right? Well, what we do in HVACS is we begin at root cause. And then sort of like a video, you take that accident and go backwards in time and go through all the sections and levels of the organization. So we start with the incident, let's say phishing email, because that's on everybody's tongue. And then you go up into what preconditions could be happening. And then another level is supervisory leadership issues. And then there's an organizational, where your policies, your HR, your onboarding, that kind of thing. So HVACS has been used in commercially in airlines. It's used in nuclear, all these highly sensitive healthcare, most recently adapted to healthcare through the Mayo Clinic and other places. And it's a proven, evidence-based, blame-free investigative tool, which can be used to figure out what other dormant issues may be happening in the organization that caused that one act. So that act, if you just fire the person that hit the phishing email or slap them on the hand or embarrass them or what have you, then you're really just addressing it's going to happen again.
That's right. You're not getting to the problem. Indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what I did in the research was I was very, very lucky to be in touch with the people that created HVACS, and I adapted it under some of their guidance to cyber. And we actually added another layer because we had to address some issues with IT and the supervisory level. And I ended up writing a series of what we call nano codes. So there's small levels, if you will, of the subsets where I can address a cause and try to find where it stemmed within the organization. And was able to do several case studies. I'd like to do more, but really excited about the new framework and its potential in the industry. I have a lot of conversations with people around the globe, really that specialize in human factors, and really just to prepare for this talk today, I called a couple of people that I really admire and just said, what's the problem? Why do we still keep having these same conversations? And what I want to do today with you is, and anytime I speak, I really want to just not say, yeah, we have a problem, but really give people a takeaway. What can you leave with today, right? And go home and do with your personal data or at your work. I have a problem with zero trust. I think that zero trust is it's impossible because you've got to have trust in people within your organization. No man is an island. You can't build a business by yourself.
Of course not. No.
I know what it's like to lose trust. I mean, I can empathize. I've been there, but trust, verify, and build you've got to build your systems so that's what happened to me. I had systems that had too much access. We've seen that recently with the Tesla incident. We don't know exactly what happened, but from my 50,000 foot view, we've got clearly an onboarding issue. You've got a management issue. You've got an access issue. And that's the three immediate things that you see, right? And one thing that I think that we do is rely too much on our applications and not putting the efforts on the people to design the applications for the people, not force the applications on the people, if that makes any sense. Because even your best employees that have great intentions, if they have got a time schedule that they need to meet, and these systems are slowing them down, there's processes or what have you, the applications are slowing them down or confusing them, they're going to find a workaround. And it may be for all the best intentions, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or another thing that Dr. Calvin Nobles, he's one of my favorites, a PhD, studies human factors. He used to be in the Navy, but he and I were chatting on this recently, and one of the things that I think is pivotal, and a lot of people will disagree with me, but we were talking about Matthew Syed's book, The Black Box Thinking, mm-hmm. where he says if airplanes were having the same problems that cybersecurity, the airline industry rather, is having the same problems as cybersecurity, we'd have about 70 planes falling out of the sky every day. Now, if you think about that, right, we as a world, we wouldn't tolerate that. Why are we tolerating it in cyber? I mean, you and I both know, we get on all of these, my goodness, all the magazines that are out there, all the podcasts, all of the newsletters, and so many breaches on a daily basis. So one of the things that, again, it's not a popular idea, but if you think about an airplane crash, right? NTSB is right there. They investigate, and then that investigation is made public, so that all the other airline industry, all the other airlines can go make sure we're not having the same problem, whether it be, we know that we can't keep a crew on board without adequate sleep. We know that. Are we doing that same thing with our employees?
No.
Right? And another thing, I don't think people understand what is a human factor? Like, what does that even mean? So if I've got an engineer or a sales rep, I don't care, somebody that has some sensitive information, their loved one just got diagnosed with cancer, it's time to pull them off that sensitive information, put them in a training program to keep them engaged in what they do. But when people are going through serious personal issues, it's going to have an effect, right?
Right. So recently, obviously, with a lot of people being put on furlough, for example, I may sound callous, but I feel a lot of organizations haven't considered the security implications of that. I mean, have they really thought about what that means for the safety and the security of their data? Because a lot of organizations we're speaking to, they haven't changed any of their access rights. They haven't changed any of their policies to make sure that, these are particularly vulnerable, at-risk individuals. I mean, forget about these are very difficult situations, and I'm concerned that will bite a lot of companies.
That is a very, very good point, because if somebody may not be malicious, but when people get back into a corner and their livelihoods are challenged,
this is it.
Then yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of conversations with friends of mine that own companies and saying, you need to tighten things down, not because you don't trust these people, but if they don't think think that they're going to have a job to come back to, and somebody else out there. So I had a conversation with somebody, and especially culturally. So somebody offering me 20,000 pounds for information may not be worth losing my job over, right? But in some cultures, and if you've got a global organization, some cultures, 20,000 pounds, that's a year's salary. So you've got to consider where your people are culturally, and
I mean, the loyalty to the organisation is, for a lot of employees that have been put on furlough, is going to be in question in some cases. And I think that, if their jobs are at risk and they're only getting a fraction of what they normally get paid, and people aren't intrinsically bad, but sometimes good people do bad things. And I just think that we're taking that risk for granted a bit. And I think that we need to be a bit more, we need to probably wake up a bit to that. And at very least, trust but verify. It's not even about necessarily removing their access, but just be conscious of having some basic checks and measures in place to make sure that the things that really matter to your organization aren't at risk. And I think, this is as much about that as it's also just making sure that, even from a psychological perspective, are they okay? Like, because if, as you rightly said, if they're not okay, like if they're you can tell they're in a bad place, then that is something that you need to take into consideration when you're thinking about what they have access to within your organization. It's just important that you understand from a human perspective, what does their state of mind mean for the security of our data, the security of our business, because that matters as much as anything. But we never connect the two. We think it's about having a box with flashing lights, and we spent all this money on this fantastic product, but that's not enough. It's not enough. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah, I was looking at a at a cyber training manual the other day, and in it they were discussing onboarding procedures. And in the onboarding, the CISO was instructed in writing to onboard in cyber issues those people they consider high risk, sensitive data. Wasn't my place to change their language, but everybody should be onboarded in the same manner when it comes to cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
So one thing about the research that you and I were discussing, that the framework HVACS cyber, is that it can be used in a couple of ways. You can go in and use it as an investigative tool once a breach has occurred, and through that fix some issues that can help it become a proactive tool. However, you can also use it on a more problem management, higher level, if you will, not quite as granular, detailed, in your initial risk assessment, putting in that human, putting in the right questions, like what you just said, making sure that supervisors on a regular basis are checking in with their people. Right. Are you okay? I can look back and see what happened in my situation, and I can, hindsight what they say about it, but I can see where the behavior started changing. I wasn't paying attention. My eye was on the prize out here, right? Building this business and the future. And I wasn't paying, I dropped the ball. I wasn't paying attention to behavior changes.
The human factor. Yeah.
They were there. Yeah. And, when they developed this in the airline industry, and they started looking at humans, and there's a really very clear analogy in what Chappell and Wegman's first book, where they say, if you've got a mechanical failure, you've got a bolt, right? Engineers will come out of the woodwork that can measure bolt fatigue. They can tell you exactly what happened, exactly how much life's left in that bolt, right? But when it comes to human factor engineers, okay, something happened with the crew. Nobody's trained. Nobody's trained to figure that out. So that's what those of us that are in human factors are doing. We are becoming trained in finding those and in helping other companies look for those clues and look for the gaps, if you will, in their organization where things could go amiss.